Good evening, and welcome to my first mastermind class. Thank you. It's called Strong Enough to Change Your Mind, the Abracadabra Way. And this has been an exciting journey getting to this point. Strong Enough to Change Your Mind, the Abracadabra Way didn't start out as a course. It actually started out as a life experience. It showed up for me when I was at a fork in the road and all canvases were wiped clean, and it was a start over point, and I wasn't quite sure what I was made of at that point. I was just wondering, it's like, now what? So, I have always been a spiritual person. I've always been a believer in magic, if we can use that word, seeing that we're going to be talking about abracadabra. I believe in the potential of people. I believe that we all have innate wisdom and unique gifts and abilities and talents. And when we speak of those things in a good way, we may surprise ourselves with what we manifest. And once we do surprise ourselves, we may actually realize that we can direct it. We can direct the energy. So, Strong Enough to Change Your Mind, the Abracadabra Way, is actually a course, an explorative course on language, specifically the language that we're using every day to ourselves and others on a regular basis. Things that we say in our head, the things that we say throughout the day, the things that we probably remember or hear ourselves saying repetitively. And we may even kind of counter those phrases with, I shouldn't be saying that, or I knew this was going to happen, or, we validate this in everyday life. And we might wonder why, if we validate it in everyday life, why aren't we thriving in every area of our life and really living the abracadabra way? So when we look at Strong Enough to Change Your Mind, the Abracadabra Way, we take it apart into two pieces. So Strong Enough to Change Your Mind in this course is about a state of being. It's a state of ease. When you're strong enough to change your mind, you are in a place where when you are afforded new information and new resources, you are able to easily assimilate them and make some changes along the way, and you're not kind of stuck in this one groove. You're able to be more flexible with the information and then apply it in your everyday life. The Abracadabra Way refers to the method, the actual specific method on how to activate the language that we're using. I'm going to give you a lot of kind of practical details, and then I'm going to give you a lighthearted version of the practical details so that we can do some profound things in a lighthearted manner. In one of the first classes that I taught about this, there was a woman in the class, and she was completely in sync with living with the law of attraction. Abracadabra literally means I create what I speak, and she was really putting those things in practice for herself, and she had some goals in her life, and they hadn't quite come into fruition for her. And she asked me, if I believe all this and I've been practicing this for years, why isn't it happening? And at the time, we were talking about prosperity and resources. So I said to her, let's take a look at this. I said, if you had $9 million, how many people that would be mad at you? And she said, probably everyone. And I said, well, that's why you don't have $9 million. So there is a current that we need to talk about. When There's language activates emotion. You know, it gives us feelings about things. And when we say something like, I am prosperous, where does our mind go? Our mind goes to, what is everybody going to think about that? You know, who am I going to have to explain it to? Am I going to have to give away all my money because people are going to ask me for it? Those types of things. So when we take it a little seriously and we create a foundation around it and we say, well, I'm going to ask for something that is going to upgrade every area of my life. And then when someone says, oh, what are you doing? And how are you doing with what you have? And they kind of question where you are, and they question your prosperity and your success, not in a negative way, but we kind of steer away from that. We don't really toot our own horn, so to speak, in a lighthearted, fun way. A lot of times we keep our prosperity and our gifts hidden so that people don't question them, rather than coming forward and saying, well, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I have, and this is what I am creating out of what I have. So we're going to do some profound things in a lighthearted manner. Now, bringing up I create what I speak, the Abracadabra Way, I'm wondering if any of you have ever had an experience where you fully realized that what you said came true, or maybe you had a coincidence where you thought of someone and then all of a sudden they're in your life, or just you needed something and out of the blue circumstances kind of lined up for you. So I'm kind of curious as to why any of you would come to a class called Strong Enough to Change Your Mind, the Abracadabra Way. How about you, Russell?
I'm here to support you and to see what you're all about with your abracadabra. I'm very open-minded and just love to connect and learn new things. So and there's no doubt in my mind that you have something, you have a gift to share, and I'm all for it.
Thanks, Russell. Have you experienced that yourself? Have you experienced creating what you're speaking yourself?
I do have a, I guess you'd call it a prayer, where I give gratitude in the morning, and I thank a number of entities, like our Creator and others, the universe, for my perfect health, my infinite abundance, and I do believe that I am affecting my reality. So I would say that I am all in as far as that this entire concept, no doubt about it. We certainly create our realities.
Nice.
And Lori, you know, there's been so many experiments in science, in colleges and labs all over the world, showing the effect of our consciousness. You know, it's more than a strange occurrence. It's statistically significant when there's a human consciousness observing an experiment versus not, just like the very, very, very famous twin slit experiment that we've all known about.
Yes.
And there's a variety of others. And so in a manner of speaking, you can scientifically explain this phenomenon of our consciousness affecting our reality, and even maybe, and it might be considered a stretch for some, explain the definition of there being a creator. We didn't come from nowhere. So I do believe that I could make an argument for there being a scientific explanation for much of what you are talking about.
Yes, there is a lot of scientific validation. And one of the easiest ways to see some of that proof is when you look at training with athletes. The way that athletes visualize and they watch themselves. And it has been scientifically proven that when you watch an activity, the same neurological pathways fire as if you were doing it as well. So there is definite scientific proof, and athletes do it all the time. And we hear about those, and I think that's why we're drawn to those stories. You know, we've all kind of grown up with the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat and all those stories that go along with it. And I remember years ago, I know I'm dating myself this way, but I remember the baseball team where I think it was Tug McGraw, whose big picture on after the World Series, he said, "I believe," and it just went on and on and on. And he said, "I just believed the whole time. I believed, I visualized it, I saw it happening," and they won the World Series. But it was a big, interesting, inspirational story that he told after they won the World Series. So yes, there is.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Russell. How about you, Jane?
Yeah, I definitely. You know, what's funny is that it took me the longest time to really get into the whole visualizing. I was doing a version of it, but I was still. It was more about willpower than divinity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't really feel at one, like I'm just going back like 20, 25, 30 years ago, and at any time during that, I didn't feel at one with my God, with my source. It was, you know, so I really wasn't firing on all cylinders. And it's slowly, I'm like, wait a minute, I am part of a universe. Yeah, there is no separation. I can think my way through. It is about desire. It is about my connection with the source, and so on. And so now it's like, okay. And now it's just a matter of getting out of my own way and my humanness, and practicing it more. Now I'm just in okay, let's practice.
Yes. Yeah. Why not? Is it possible? Is it probable? And is it applicable when you think about it? You know, like abracadabra, it is a word that is steeped in mysticism. It's, you know, it's been spoken about throughout the ages. It crosses, you know, many languages. It is actually tied into the sacred Trinity in some way. So it is something that has just been around for a really long time, and people have practiced it. And of course, years ago, it was practiced more in secret societies and things like that. And there were particular special people that you went to for ceremony and healing and things like that. And I do think that back then, with the intensity of it, that it was reserved, so to speak, for holy people or tribal people or elders, or, you know, someone who had some distinguished characteristics that were recognized by a group of people. You know, and, you know, we hear priests and priestesses and things like that along the way. And I have a feeling, as we talk about these things, that as the sacredness kind of became diluted, and I think that when the sacredness of it became diluted, we stopped taking it so seriously, and it kind of came on almost like as Disney, abracadabra, you know, here and there, random things, and it wasn't directed. So we're going to talk about directing it. We're going to talk about, is that the way that we do it? As I know that Casa, you had mentioned it earlier, that you practice the Abracadabra way all the time, that you speak of it and you practice it, and you've had some experiences with it.
Yes, I do, and I had to learn it because actually, what I was practicing a lot in my previous life was what I've learned that I was putting myself into the scrutiny by wrapping myself into the future, basically writing the script. And then one of the situations that I was repeating over and over, and I was so great with this. It was sometimes I had problems with my throat chakra. So this child I was abused, and then I had no help from nowhere. So I've learned how to shut myself down, and I always had problems where everything was always starting from the sore throat, and I caught myself even 3 years ago. Okay, when you have that first scratching in your throat, and then and I was saying to myself, oh shit, I'm gonna get up tomorrow with sinus infections, and guess what?
You got a sinus infection.
I was preparing myself. I was actually allowing my body to go weak because, I was basically ordering it. As you know, you go to the restaurant, you say, well, I want a Greek salad and I want a margarita. And then you might expect it to get, Greek salad and margarita. And that's what I was doing to myself. So
Yes.
I had actually to learn how to, at those moments, when I have those scratchy throat or something going on here, I would say like to myself, no, I do not give knowing consent to that. And I'm ordering my immune system to work extra hard over the night because I need to get up all healthy and with no scratchy throat whatsoever. I don't need that. I don't want it. And I'm not asking for it. And that kind of, and I've learned to have attitude towards that. And it's been working.
Yes.
Even recently I had a situation that some kind of energy caused my throat again to show the symptoms that I'm not speaking up for myself. And I had that not only scratchy throat, I even in my bronchi I had this like already like this, and then I felt in my sinus already so much phlegm, and I was like, oh no, lady, I do not give knowing consent. And exactly what I was speaking to in a moment ago, I did exactly the same thing. I was speaking to myself like for 10, 15 minutes that, no, goodbye. I'm cleansing, I'm, activating my own self to get rid of it because I'm not aligning with this. I'm not okay with this. And guess what? I woke up the next day, and even that evening, I had already serious sinus phlegm piling up. And that that noise in my bronchi, it wasn't a jokey thing, but
Yes.
I got rid of it because I did what I had to do.
Yes. You bring up a lot of good points, Kasha. One of the things about the canceling out and to recognizing that, as humans, I call it, sometimes we're inconvenient humans. I call it our inconvenient human behavior. And we definitely can prophesize, what is going to happen. Like we can get up in the morning and maybe not be looking forward to our day, and we'll say, geez, I know I'm going to have a bad day, and chances are you're probably going to have a bad day. However, there is, just like you can say that, you can also say, cancel that. I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to allow my day to be the best it can be, and then just move on without overthinking the details. And that's part of the magic of language. That's part of the activation of language, is that we have innate intelligence. We truly do within ourselves know who we are and have had experiences that were confident and truthful to ourselves. We do know that. And I know that working with people and talking about mantras and, repeating certain words and phrases and things like that, oftentimes people have a hard time saying something that they may not believe is true in their mind. For instance, getting ready for this class, learning how to, teach a master class. I have been saying to myself, I am confident. And I've been saying it just randomly through the day. I'm not sitting down and I'm just I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it whenever it comes into my mind. I'm going to say it in a lighthearted manner. And as I'm saying it, I'm saying I am confident, and something is coming into my mind that says I'm not confident. And then I'm going to say, well, yes, I'm confident. And I'm just going to keep saying it in as many different ways, just saying the words. Now, here's what happens when you do that. When I say I am confident, my mind goes to all the reasons, places that I'm not. My mind goes there. But innately, inside my innate wisdom, that phrase goes to where I have felt confident. And when you have that place where you have felt confident, your energy aligns with it. And this is where things occur that may not have occurred before, because that is a true statement. It may be the time where you rode a bike for the first time by yourself and you felt confident. It doesn't matter what the experience was, but you have it. And you activate that wisdom by saying those words. So we get out of our head by saying, oh yeah, well, I said I'm confident, but I'm really not. I said I'm confident, but not about this, but not about that. None of that matters. That's where we get into that hamster wheel in our thought process, is that we talk ourselves out of our truth. And so saying I am confident, I have felt myself with some different behaviors, some different attitudes, and a reassurance has started to come up inside of me that has been dormant for a long time. So it is the practice of it, for sure, the ritual, and we know in ritual, whether we call it prayer or whether we call it meditation, whatever it is we call it, we know for sure that people and groups who practice ritual do well. Doesn't really matter what their intention is, it works. They do well. And we just happened, a lot of us, we don't practice it. We think it has to be a big thing. We talk ourselves out of it. We say we might feel silly doing it. But the bottom line is, it's been scientifically proven that it works. And if we want to become strong enough to change our mind, we need to follow the Abracadabra way, and we need to create what we speak.
I would like to speak to that, please.
Excuse me?
I would like to speak to that.
Oh, yes.
So because I don't know how old you are in this, what you are doing, but I'm in this new way of doing things and living my life the new way. I'm kind of fresh off the boat for the last 3 years. I mean, I was cooking myself during the previous life, but I'm aware of more things in those recent. So I'm barely graduating preschool with that. But I'm noticing there is a lot of people that they claim, and especially on Facebook and other Instagrams, and they say like they are coaches, they are doing this, and they practice gratitude and thankfulness and forgiveness, and then and you connect with those people a little bit more, and then you learn a little bit more about them. And I really think, besides what you are saying, that you have to practice those things, but you have to, and I'm just speaking from my own experience and watching people, how people struggle, even they meditate, even they have those rituals, even they pray to God, but if they don't truly connect with that God, it's just those words, they belong only to the lips. Mm-hmm. But when you start connecting those lips to your soul and to your mind in the way that you are not lying to yourself, so you don't contradict what you are saying, and most people do. When you really truly breathe in that what you are trying to do, or what you are doing, or what you are meditating, and how you are preaching to that wisdom, how you are trying to convince yourself to be a good, to be rich, to be healthy, you really have to connect those dots, because if those words, they are just living on your lips, they would not do enough of the job, and you can repeat it over and over and it's not gonna work. I've heard all my life, oh girl, just let it go. And I even bought the picture that says let it go with the balloon, and I could not let it go. Even I was looking at that picture for thousands of times to replace meditation and the rituals into believing into it. I was looking at this picture and it didn't work. I had my own way of meditating into it. I find another way of me having different power of walking away, because I really think if you have to let something go, you have to push it. Like, it takes so much force to do it. But I've learned just turn around and start walking away, and that's so much easier than trying to push something out from your life. And so again, I think connecting those dots just a little bit farther than from here.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I also do is I'm also a nutritionist. And when I talk to people in my nutrition practice, I give them the analogy that, say, for instance, you have a clear glass, and you fill it up with dirt, and you put it in the sink, and you just turn the water on just a little bit. Eventually, that clean water is going to just clean out all of that debris. You don't have to keep staring at the debris. What you want to infuse is the water. It's just let it run, let the debris fall away, and keep infusing what you really want. And I think that's what you're saying, Kasia, is that it has to be followed with action, but it also has to be followed there has to be a belief system. The first thing that we have to do is we have to agree that the Abracadabra Way works. We have enough examples in our life. We've seen it. We talk about it. We're inspired by it. But we always maybe look at it like it belongs to somebody else, like it's for special people who have special powers. And it really isn't. It's repetition. It's repetition, whether in your mind you believe it or not. In time, repetition will resonate with your innate wisdom, and what you are saying will become true in your behavior. And that's what we're looking for. And strong enough to change your mind is we're looking for our belief system to be our way of living. We are living that way. And that is what is activated by the language.
Yeah, and if there's trust, you have to trust that what you are trying to do or doing.
Well, there's science, like Russell said. There's science, and the scientific fact of repetition. And this is a fun fact. There's a lot of fun facts when it comes to empowerment. We often look at things more like they're a job rather than they could really be fun. And I'm going to continuously say that we're going to do profound things in a lighthearted manner, because we do have the science to back it up. And when it comes to repetition, here's a fun fact. It is scientifically proven that if you repeat any thought, word, or deed in the same way 400 times, it creates a new neural pathway in the brain. However, 400 times seems daunting. We hear 400 times, that seems daunting. Well, here's the other part. Here's the fun fact of repetition. When something is done in the element of play, it only takes 10 to 20 times to create that brain pathway. I know for myself that I can say something positive 10 to 20 times in one day in a fun way, looking at something that I like, putting myself in some really interesting space, enhancing my surroundings. And if you want it, it's there. And all you have to do is create a game. We create these games when athletes create games. They're one of the easiest people to see as athletes. They create games, but they do profound things in the element of play. And that's what we're talking about. We're going to do profound things in the element of play. We're going to be lighthearted. We're going to talk about I am statements. Have we heard the most significant words that we will ever speak are the ones that follow I am. I'm going to give you a little experiment here. If you say, how many people can say, I am happy or I am funny without smiling? Can you say, I am funny without feeling like you want to smile? Right? Russell, you're not smiling. Are you saying it? You know, we say these things. We prophesize ourselves all the time. You know, we say things when we go places. It's like we repeat a phrase, or we say something, then we say, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Or I knew that was going to happen. Or this is what I'm going to say today. We talk about our language all the time. All the time. Just taking it seriously as how we can activate that language with intention, and asking ourselves this question: is the language that I'm using upgrading every area of my life? Every area. Because when we create something, we want it to be a complement to every area of our life: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial. We create a plan with no side effects. Best medicine ever. No side effects. Everything is an upgrade. So when you think about these 5 areas of your life, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial, think about your health. Think about your physical health. I am a healthy person. Now, if you are a healthy person, does that upgrade your life mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially? So one small area, one area upgrades every area of your life. When you improve that, do one thing for yourself physically, you think better, you feel better, you do better, you do what you love what you do, you walk down that path. It seems like it's a far off path. There are a lot of people today who are really struggling, and there seems to be an awful lot of suffering, and people have lost their way, and it can get really confusing. But it is my belief that this is the way we start. It is my belief that this is the way we started a long time ago. And we have just kind of lost our way and not taken ourselves seriously, or we have developed conditions by language that have been used towards us and around us from the time we were young, when you talked about that earlier, Casa. Any questions so far? Any experiences so far? Because I'm about to ask you some more questions.
I'm ready to try to answer.
Okay.
The challenge.
Okay. So I want to know if anyone has ever changed your state of being instantaneously with your language. Have you ever instantaneously changed your state of being? Gone from one state of being to another state of being instantaneously? The first thing that comes to mind for me when I ask myself that question is music. When you want to feel better, what kind of music do you listen to? When you know, people use it to get through grief. They listen to the saddest songs they can think of. They use music therapeutically. There's sound therapy. There's language therapy, music therapy. Have you ever experienced changing your state of being instantaneously by going outside, listening to a song, picking up the phone and talking to someone that you care about? Have you been able to change your state of being, your mood? Has one thing that has ever been said to you changed the trajectory of your life or your day? Anything that you've overheard? Language is powerful. Language is what connects us all. There's the definition of language is the principal method of human communication consisting of words used in a structured and conventional way, conveyed by speech, writing, or gesture. And when we define the words and the language that we're using, when we say we know what we mean and we mean what we say, it becomes more direct. Words have emotional charge on them. In one of the classes I was teaching on the laws of karma, one of the words that came up was the word consequence. You reap what you sow, right? Consequences. My thoughts and actions have consequences, good or bad. And in the group that I was teaching, I asked, who feels positive about the word consequences? Right? But I had some teachers in the class, and they felt really good about the word consequences because the definition of consequence is simply outcome. That's all it means, is just simply outcome. So if we come together and we realize that the word consequence has that definition, now we can talk to each other, because we're not talking about good or bad. We're just talking about the outcome. And do you see how that clarifies our communication with each other? How many times have we maybe talked to young people or to our children and said, you know, there's going to be consequences for that, the way that you say that. Well, are those consequences going to be good? Is it going to be a positive outcome? We want to steer it in that direction. You're always going to have consequences, so how are we going to steer that word so that whenever we hear it, we feel empowered? We feel like we have control over the consequences, and we do it with our language.
Yeah, consequences, they always have this scary thing.
It's the same way when we hear the word karma. People use the word karma very loosely, like what goes around comes around, and insinuating that might be a bad thing. Well, what if we have the attitude that we are a giving, generous, kind person, and what goes around comes around?
It's just giving the azimuth to give the destination towards that negative outcome. And when my daughter didn't like to learn math, she didn't like to learn math. So whenever she was fighting math, I was just thinking in my head, like, I was good in math. My husband is genius. He's her father. How come this baby doesn't like math? And so she would, like, whenever she would be upset with me, when we have conversation about, well, that would be cool if you do more homework to, kind of understand what's going on here. And she was like fighting me. And for me to give her the positive at the end of that journey of investing some time into the math I was always telling her, I'm not expecting you to go to mathematics. I'm not expecting you to be super excellent all the way through. But I'm hoping that you understand that learning enough math for your future to be able to protect yourself from the moments when other people will take advantage of you when you don't know how to figure out few things, just to protect your own money. So I think I was actually giving her, instead of scaring her, I think I was giving her that maybe I'm not comfortable at that time for her, but I was showing her the positive why.
Create a game. Creating a game is the way to be lighthearted, is the way to stay inspired, creating that game. So say you want to use math. Well, maybe you create in your mind a store. Maybe you create a scenario where you're using your money in a certain way that's getting you to where the destination that you want to go to. We always want to head in the direction that is exciting. We don't want to plan a vacation to somewhere where we don't want to go. So when we think about that, and when we think about our mind, we always want to be excited about our state of being. I want to be happy. I desire to be happy. I am happy. Now, there may be all kinds of things going on in my life, and everybody's got all kinds of pieces going on in their life that could say, well, I'm not happy about this and I'm not happy about this. But somewhere you are happy. And you want to activate that cellular behavior. I'm going to give you a little resource here. Deepak Chopra. he has an article that he wrote, and you can Google it. It's called "If I Could Only Be Like My Cells." And he talks about how cells in our body actually respond to certain types of behavior. So for instance, when we speak in a kind way, our cells activate themselves in a collaborative, healthy way, in an upgraded way. The energy of the cell activates, it gets better. When we have certain behaviors such as like hoarding, it says hoarding is not an option, because whenever we take something in and it doesn't have anywhere to go, it's congestion. We become spiritually congested just as well as we can become physically congested if we don't do something with what we're asking for. And you know, we hear things like, well, be careful what you wish for. I change that and I say, be ready for what you wish for. Be ready for it. Plan for it. Get excited about it. Think about it. And you can feel that energy in your body activating. So you can look that up. There's 12 of them that he talks about, if I could be like my cells. And it's a fascinating article. And it's motivation for our behavior because it shows up in our physical health. It shows up physiologically. That when we speak in a certain way, our cells, our innate wisdom knows the truth and it wants to thrive. We have language can activate your desire to thrive. Death should not be an inconvenient byproduct of poor living. It should be another destination, a threshold, something that, you know, holds lots and lots of memories and pleasantries and leaves something really, really good behind for other people to talk about and think about. It's a practice. We live in a wild world right now, especially right now. There's a lot of confusion going on. I think it's a perfect time to just start with ourselves and start to say things like, I am confident. I am capable. I am happy. I'm going to give you another fun fact about innate wisdom. Have you ever heard that phrase that if you ever want to know what you really want, flip a coin because by the time it hits the ground, you'll know? Have you ever heard that? Because it's quick. And our innate wisdom is quick. And it says if you ever want to know, you know, are you choosing between one thing or another, flip a coin because by the time it hits the ground, you'll know what you really want. It is instant. It is instantaneous. That we just, it's not that we can't do it, we just haven't been doing it. So I know that we're getting down to the wire here on time, and I thought that I was going to have so much time left over and I wasn't going to know what to say, but I could go on and on and on. So what I would like to do is I would like to give you a suggestion. I would like you to just take a couple of breaths, take a couple of minutes, take a moment, and just create an I am statement for yourself. Just whatever comes to your mind first. When you say I am, one word, and there it is. And when you have it, just settle in. And for the next week, say that phrase in as many lighthearted ways or not. Just notice what happens when you repeat that. Say the same phrase, say the same word, and just say it throughout the week. And when you come back as many times as you want to say it, it's the infusion of it. You know, it's like you could say it once and it could last all day. You might have a day where you need to say it all day long. You're just going to keep saying it no matter what. We're going to practice it. We're going to create this game. And when you come back next week, we're going to say a phrase, I am the one who said, and this is what happened. So for me, I'm going to say, I am confident. And next week, I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, I am the one who said, I am confident. And this is what happened. And that's how we start to validate the process. That's how we start to establish the first thing, which is belief. The first thing, which is, this is possible. And when we get to possible, we'll get to probable. And when we get to probable, we'll get to applicable. And we'll walk ourselves through this game, and we'll see what happens. And we'll have exciting conversations. I had a friend in one of my earlier classes, and she had a desire for years, many, many years, that she wanted to live in Hawaii. It was her lifelong dream. She wanted to live in Hawaii. She was living in upstate New York at the time. And we went through the course, and she actually had a, you know how some people have a vision board? She actually had a vision room. She had a vision room. Every wall in her room were pictures.
Are you frozen or it's me? I think Jane came and froze Lori.
Yes, what did you do, Jane?
Week 5, she...
Oh, Lori, we didn't hear you for like a good minute or so.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Did you hear about the Hawaii story?
Yes.
You just started.
Okay.
You just started, and then we lost you when Jane came on board. And again. Russell, you are muted.
Oh. So.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Lori, if your reception it's not so good, you can probably cut your video and we might be able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now you're good.
Okay. So she wanted to live in Hawaii. She'd been focusing on this for 7 years or more. And on week 5, after we had discussed all of these obstacles and abracadabra and I create what I speak and how many people are going to be happy if you go to Hawaii and how do you sort through all that. And on week 5, she came back and she had been looking for a massage therapist, and she found a card that she had from someone she didn't know who did Hawaiian massage. So she decided to go there, and she went for a massage with this person who did Hawaiian energetics. And while she was there, the massage therapist was actually looking for someone to live in her house for free in Hawaii for 6 months. And she never finished the course because the next week she flew out to Hawaii and she lived there for over a year. It was just one of those, you know, signs, symbols, and coincidences. And how do you discard that, or is that real? Is, you know, when you take something like that seriously and you just keep infusing it with a lighthearted manner and you ask yourself, is this going to upgrade every area of my life? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially? It's like, yeah. And when my life is upgraded, everybody's life around me is upgraded because I am infusing people around me with optimism. I'm teaching this, I'm talking about it, and whatever it is I get, it's in this flow of giving. The best part of having is giving. So ask for the things that you want, the state of being that you would like to be in. I am confident.
Can you repeat those 3 words you said? Because I got into thinking and I didn't write down. So the first one was possible and the next one was what?
Probable. And the last one is applicable. Now I'm going to give you 2 fun stories before we close out the night. This is my personal experience with abracadabra, and I create what I speak and how I teach it to my children and my grandchildren. So have you ever been frustrated with children who always want their the toy that's in the bottom of the toy box? You know, they always rope you into trying to find the toy. It's always, you got to help them out. You got to dig through the toy box, and this is the toy that they want. Well, I got tired of doing that.
The clock.
So I said to them, I said, okay, stand around the toy box. Tell me what toy it is that you want. I said, oh, I want my orange tiger. And I said, okay. I said, do you know what it looks like? Yes. And how big is it? They said how big it was. Okay. And it's orange. Yes. Okay. I said, look in the toy box and say orange tiger until you find it. And they found it. It was like orange tiger. It was the only thing they were looking for because they were saying it. It gets the debris out of the way. It was the only thing. And to this day, they're in their 20s now. It's there. They do it. I was playing Chutes and Ladders with my 7-year-old grandson a couple of weeks ago, and he needed to get this certain number, and he said, I'm going to say abracadabra. I need a 2. And sure enough, he rolled it, and he got a 2. And then it was my turn, and I said, geez, I said, I need a 7. And I rolled it, and I dropped it, and I got a 1. And he looked at me, and he said, you didn't say abracadabra. So it's making a difference. They get it. He's talking about it. He's 7. And now I'm going to tell you a really cool story about abracadabra. This is when I first started writing this course. And like I said, it wasn't a course when I first started writing it. It was my own life experience that I was working through. And I was living in a small apartment. And I had been there for about a year, and I really wanted some more space. I'm a nature person. I want to be able to see the sunset and the sunrise, and I really wanted to be able to live someplace that had more space and was more in nature. But I wasn't really financially sound enough to think about that in a logical way. But I don't really ever get stuck on logic, as Jane knows. And Russell knows. Probably most of us here don't get stuck on logic. So I decided that I was going to take a ride, and I was going to drive down roads, only the roads that I wanted to live on. That's it. And I was just going to look around. So I had this one route that I drove almost every day, and I loved this road and I've always wanted to live on this road. So every time I drove down that road, I said, I want to live here. I'm going to live here. And I started looking around at houses. And then I went on Zillow, and I started looking at the insides of houses that were on that road just to infuse the experience. And I said, I want to live on this road. It was a week before my birthday. And I drove down the road, and there was a for rent sign in front of a house. And I was like, oh my God, is this really happening? Is it really happening? Is abracadabra really happening? So I'm going to try it. I pulled in the driveway, I wrote down the number, and I called the number, said, yeah, I'd love for you to come over and take a look. And so I said, okay, I'll be there tonight. And I went over, and this person was looking for someone to live in the house as a caretaker. He had inherited the house from a family member who had just passed away. His mother and his brother had just passed away. My mother and my brother had just passed away. When I walked into the house, my grandson's favorite painting of Van Gogh was hanging on the wall. When I looked at the newspapers next to the fireplace, the exact date of my brother's passing was in the newspaper next to the fireplace, and it was years before. And there it was. And I still live in the house. So abracadabra. Let's make a game out of it. Let's, follow it down the path, and let's share some stories and infuse each other with some of this optimism, and talk a little bit more about the method. So the Abracadabra Way, there is a method. We have to talk about the belief of it. We have to talk about activating the word. We have to talk about the practice, the commitment, and the reward, the power of it, and the reward of it. And they're all really exciting conversations that kind of get our energy up, upgrade every area of our life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially, with no side effects.
Yeah, I practice consequences for too many years. I'm done.
Keep going, Kasha. You got it.
Abracadabra, I'm done.
Abracadabra. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it activated your
Wonderful.
intelligence, imagination, and your sense of humor. And let's do profound things in a lighthearted manner.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lori. Wonderful. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
See you next week. Thanks so much.